With a thrilling Duel 1 behind us, we can look forward to Duel number 2 now for the 1-Up Superstar Series Pensacola 500. Alongside me in the booth is Ben McDonough, who had a very successful Duel 1, finished fairly strongly, and has got a good starting spot for the 500. I don't have time to ask you how the race went, because we've got a whole nother race to run. With 25 new drivers trying to race their way into the 500, it's going to be plenty exciting to watch these 7 drivers that are going to try and go for these final 3 transfer spots.
Yeah, I had fun in my duel. Now it's time for me to be up in the booth and commentate and see how the rest of these guys do and see where they're going to be starting and hopefully see some good battling throughout this one.
So we have Kyle Vaughters, Nelson Reeves, Jeremiah Dwayne, Cody Goforth, Riley Spurleytube, Jason Parker, and Allison Rose trying to race their way into the 500. They have 7 of the 25 spots in this race, and they're all starting outside the top 8, so it's going to be interesting to see, A, who can make their way through the field fastest, and B, who can stay up front for long enough to secure a starting berth in the big race.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one here. A lot of storylines going into this one. We'll just have to see how it all plays out.
So with that being said, we have 25 cars on the grid lined up ready to go racing, with Justin Hutchinson ready to take them to the green flag as the outside pole sitter for the 500. He will keep that position barring any incident in this race. So that being said, we're lined up, we're ready to go, and we're ready to take you to the green flag. This is Duel number 2 for the 1-Up Superstar Series in the Pensacola 500, coming to you live shortly. So with Justin Hutchinson on the inside, Zachary Fitzwater on the outside of the front row, the pace car's already off, the green flag's in the air, and Duel 2 for the Pensacola 500 is underway. Fitzwater actually got the jump on Hutchinson to start the race, so he led coming to the line, but I had to imagine that Hutchinson's going to have the advantage with help from his teammate Blair in the 19 on the inside.
Yeah, coming through the corner here, the inside line is preferred shortest way around the racetrack. We'll just have to see how the 10 can hold off that 19 and the rest of these guys here.
So Hutchinson leads with Blair in second. These two are teammates, but they really have different agendas here. Blair wants to finish as high as possible to guarantee herself a good spot in the 500. Well, Hutchinson just wants to bring the car home in one piece so he can maintain his front row starting position, as Blair makes a move on the inside for the race lead with help from Kyle Vaughters, who must race his way in on time.
Yeah, different agendas this race. Obviously, everybody wanting to run up front. Everybody has their different opinions on how they're going to be racing today. So we'll just have to see as we see the 19 lead the first lap.
So Blair takes control of the race with Vaughters in second. They're 4 wide for fourth, with Henry Thomas making a move on the inside. He is your teammate. Any information you shared with him in between dual races to try and help him out in the draft, especially in the early goings here?
Yeah, definitely want to stay on that inside line. Definitely want to not get too far of a lead as we see the 19 here. Possibly just go for aggressive moves early on, try to be up at the front and show off that sponsorships.
So with Blair leading, Henry Thomas making a move for second. They're 4 wide behind this lead group, with Kyle Vaughters now stuck on the outside. Kevin Carter making a bold move early on in this race. He started 15th, and he's already in 2 laps up into the top 3, as they're 4 wide behind them.
Yeah, very aggressive for Carter and for Henry Thomas, my teammate here, as they're both running second and third here. We're just going to have to see how they're going to take down the 19 and see how they run with everybody else behind them, trying to get up to this lead.
It's not common to see a driver dominate a plate race, but we've seen Blair do it so far. She's led every lap so far, but keep in mind, there's only been 3 laps in this race, as Halleck in the 84 makes a move on the high side of Carter, as we look back now at Kyle Vaughters and Jeremiah Dwayne. They are side by side for the lead transfer spot, with Jason Parker right behind them. That would be an upset if Parker could make the 500 in his underfunded Chevrolet. But right now, he is in a transfer spot. They're 3 wide for it. So right now, it is Vaughters, Dwayne, and Parker in the transfer spots. But we still got plenty of racing left to go.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting seeing some of these guys run up front. Definitely trying to show off how fast that they are and what their teams are bringing to the field here, as we are seeing a bunch of these guys, different places, new people as well. Definitely going to have an interesting season, as it's only the beginning here.
So Joshua Michaels is a very talented super speedway racer, and he's making a move on the inside of Parker. That is for, I believe, 4th place. With help from Cody Goforth, who also needs to race his way in to the main event. And he now takes the top transfer spot from Jason Parker. And now Goforth moves into a very handy position with help from Roberto Crown Jr., who locked himself into the 500 on speed from Pole. And Henry Brown in the 22, the Portuguese driver, also locked himself in on speed.
Yeah, speed is definitely key here, especially at the super speedway tracks. But you also want to show how well you can do during the run, during pack racing and all this time. Definitely want to be able to show your strengths and show what you got, especially for the long season ahead.
So Goforth and Brown making moves early. Brown making a move on Goforth and puts Roberto Crown Jr. on the high side 3 wide. With help from Zachary Fitzwater, this group is gaining ground on the leaders. But Blair continues to dominate this race. And look at Allison Rhodes. She started dead last in this race in a very underfunded Capital Racing team. Her teammate Jordan Presto in the first duel performed admirably, and she's proving that that was no fluke by running up in the top 10 in duel number 2. She's trying to make the 500 on speed.
Yeah, that Ford is running strong. Let's see how fast she can go. Definitely going to be interesting seeing that 46 move up through the field and hopefully contend for this win and being able to make the show here.
But she's got Duke Anzac on her inside. He was just in the booth with us watching that first duel and learning from that first duel to try and adapt to his 83 Toyota. But Blair's got a very comfortable lead out front. Even with these guys side by side 3 wide behind her, she's still maintaining a comfortable pace out front. And no one's really coming up to challenge her right now.
Yeah, it might be a fuel strategy. As we saw in the shootout, everybody can make it on fuel. So I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to save their stuff, make her run out in the front, just try to burn up more fuel. Maybe just trying to be in a good position, especially once they start being aggressive here.
So Blair continues to lead. They're 3 wide behind her with Carter, Fitzwater, and Thomas, plus Henry Brown for good measure. They're all trying to take the lead from Blair in the 19, who's had a very dominant race to this point. She has led every lap of this race, a rarity for super speedway standards. But here comes Zachary Fitzwater with help from Jeffrey Finguy and Michael McCuskey. He also locked in a spot on pole day.
Yeah, I believe the people behind her is also side drafting, which is slowing the cars down for both of them, or at least one of them. So we're definitely going to be able to see the speed between side drafting and normal drafting from nose to tail and see how well that affects the cars, especially going into the big race soon.
Here's Nelson Reeves in the 17 Toyota. Kings Motorsports is suspected to be a very big threat for the championship, but he's got a very big hurdle to climb first, and that's making the big race at the Pensacola 500. Right now, he is in the lead transfer position, but there's still over almost 2/3 of this race to go, so plenty of time for something to happen, and it will happen, because as we've seen in these races, anything can and will happen.
As we see the 92 make a move on the 19, first person to actually try to make the move in quite some time, doesn't make it stick. The 84 falls in line as well as the 35 right behind him.
That's Stephen Gale, who started deep in the field in this duel. He started 17th, and actually Halleck started 22nd, and they are making their way up nicely through this pack. It's interesting to see who the comers and goers of this race as we approach the end of lap number 9, and Blair has continued to lead all of them.
Yeah, this is very interesting to see. This super speedway racing hasn't really been one dominant car this whole entire race. But for some reason, the 19 is able to do it, and it's very impressive to say the least. Hopefully, she can stay up there and contend for this win and then be able to have a good shot going into the next race.
But here comes Finguy on the inside. Finguy's going to try and take the lead from his Ford teammate. 3 Fords in the top 3 spots, 4 in the top 5, with only Stephen Gale there to break up the Mustangs up in the lead. Finguy noses out Blair for the lead going down the back straightaway, but I just think that Blair's got a good run on the high side with help from Halleck and Hutchinson.
Yeah, the bump draft is very strong here as she clears the 92 off of turn 3 and being able to keep her lead right here.
So Blair continues to dominate this race. She is a very good super speedway racer. She won in Brazil. It's not a similar track to this, but it's a similar length. So she knows how to win on these types of tracks. It's just very rare that we see a driver thoroughly dominate at these plate tracks. But right now, the battle is for the transfer spot, which Kyle Vaughters currently holds. He is in third. Allison Rose right behind him. She is also in. The battle right now is between, it looks like, Jeremiah Dwayne in the 56, and I think Nelson Reeves in the 17. They are fighting for the final transfer spot, but right now it's anybody's game still.
Yeah, definitely a lot of time still left to be had in this race, as we have basically 2/3 left in this race. So there's definitely a lot of chances for aggression, definitely a lot of chances for passing and all that stuff. They are 4 wide in the back, and then they're single file up front. This is going to be an interesting race, to say the least.
And look at Allison Rose making that Capital Motorsports team very proud as she works her way to the outside of Joshua Michaels. That is the battle for 4th position. She will cede the spot to Michaels for the time being, but she's still running in the top 5, and a phenomenal run for that Capital Racing team, who did not come into this race expecting to do well, but man, we proved them wrong here. She's running in the top 5 still.
Yeah, just shut the door on the 38 of Jeff Bolton. That's very impressive, especially as a veteran like him.
So now it is Vaughters, Rose, and Parker in the transfer spots, because Jason Parker has made his way past Jeremiah Dwayne. So it's Rose now takes the top transfer spot from Vaughters. So move Allison Rose into a good transfer position in 4th place, but they're going to go 4 wide behind her and Jeff Bolton. That's Xavier, Thomas, Parker, and Vaughters all side by side for position.
Yeah, everybody wants to be up front, but there's not enough time to do it, as they are very single file out at the front, and then they start to scatter back there, as we see the 26 now make a move and trying to make this a little bit more interesting here.
So Joshua Michaels tries to make a move on Jeffrey Finguy, doesn't quite make it, but what he did do was he put Allison Rose on the high side, and that's going to allow Cody Goforth to get past her. Will now take over the top transfer spot with help from Henry Brown. Nelson Reeves is back there as well, and look at that gray 76. Riley Spurley is making his way up to the front as well. So don't count out the 76 in the BTB Motorsports entry. This battle for the transfer spot is becoming very wide open as Blair continues to show her strength early in this race.
Yeah, definitely still a long one here, as we're almost halfway in this race. Definitely have a lot to show. A lot of drivers still yet to run up front, but we'll go ahead and see how it all plays out during the race.
So with Allison Rose dropping to the back, she will bide her time for another stab at the lead. But right now, Cody Goforth is in the top transfer spot, with Riley Spurley and Nelson Reeves making up the final transfer positions right behind him. But right now, Blair continues to absolutely crush the competition. But Finguy's just lurking in her mirror, trying to make her make a mistake, which she has yet to make all race long. But you gotta feel for all these guys looking at the back bumper of that yellow Ford. They want to lead this race. It's just really hard to pass her.
Yeah, I wonder if it's actually just being an aggressive standpoint on the 19, or they just don't want to be too aggressive behind her. And they might just be saving their stuff and try to get a good run at the end of the race, trying to not get in a wreck and just be safe for the rest of this race.
So keep in mind, they don't give out points in this race, and they don't give out the prize until the final lap. But look at Riley Spurley in the 76. He's made his way up into 6th place and into the 2nd transfer spot behind Nelson Reeves. So put Spurley in the 500 for the time being, as Finguy makes another shot at Blair, going for the lead into turn 1.
Yeah, as they are getting 2 by 2 throughout this whole entire field, we'll go ahead and see how this shakes up here at the front.
So Finguy making a move on his Ford teammate with help from Kevin Carter in a Toyota and Riley Spurley in a Chevrolet. So a lot of manufacturers being split up here as they go 3 wide behind Finguy and Blair, but they're still side by side for the lead. I'm just wondering who's going to get the edge coming off of 4 to lead lap number 16. It's going to be really close, but I think Finguy might actually get her here.
Yeah, definitely a lot of praise for that 19 being up front this whole entire race. As
Until
it looks like
now, Jeffrey Finguy has taken the lead by the thinnest of margins. The first lap led by anybody other than Blair in the 19. It goes to Jeffrey Finguy, but they're 4 wide behind them, and Finguy's still trying to get past Blair. she's still tight on his side, trying to side draft him back a bit. But now she's got Henry Brown pushing her. But Brown goes down past Finguy, trying to make it 3 wide for the lead going into turn 3.
What an aggressive move, and it looks like he's going to make it. The 22 on the inside of the 92 and the 19, the most 2 dominant cars of this race so far.
So move Henry Brown to the top spot in a commanding fashion with help from Cody Goforth and Roberto Crown Jr. So Brown leads this race now. The Portuguese driver locked into the show on speed, but he wants to get a better starting position by racing his way in. And they're they're 5 wide for position behind Henry Brown, and it looks like they're going to settle it between these cars as Vaughters pushes his teammate through to the lead. But Vaughters wants to win this race himself. He wants position, and he wants it in the worst possible way.
Man, just past halfway, and things are just heating up. As we see the 8 of Henry Thomas getting a push from the 47. That bottom lane is very strong, but everybody on the high line and in the middle lanes are actually putting on a very good fight up here.
They're 4 wide, 4 rows deep, but Henry Thomas, with Michael McCuskey pushing, is now out in the lead of this race. With Allison Rose back in contention in the 46. She's in third. It's go or go home for Allison Rose, and she's making it work. But she's in the middle of 4 wide with Miles Mashburn getting the push from Daniel Bouchard on the inside lane. We haven't heard much from Mashburn or Bouchard this whole race, but they're coming to the front when it matters, and they're making a push for the top spot here.
Everybody just went green, and they just won.
In trouble! We got trouble in the back. Zachary Fitzwater's upside down, and Halleck's upside down. Kevin Carter's upside down, and Nelson Reeves is out of the 500 in the blink of an eye, as is Riley Spurleytube. Kevin Carter's race is done. Jeffrey Finguy was involved. He had such a dominant day going. Kevin Carter's out of the race. Jeffrey Finguy with heavy damage. Zachary Fitzwater with a wild ride down in turn 3. We hope he's all right, but the field slows down behind Henry Thomas. This race has just changed in an instant with the first caution of the day on lap 19.
Yeah, this is amazing. The aggression level rose, and it showed. A lot of cars taken out of this field, a lot of cars' hopes for making the show just went down the drain. Very sad to see, but they did what they could, and hopefully they can come back later this year and put on another stellar performance.
So Riley Spurleytube's hopes of making the show are done. Halleck's day is done. Jeffrey Finguy with some damage. Henry Brown, I should say, is done for the day, I would assume. Roberto Crown Jr. damage. Nelson Reeves and the Kings Motorsports team are going to go home disappointed here, as DNQs in the Pensacola 500, along with Riley Spurleytube, their hopes are done. But as the pace car picks up Henry Thomas, we will find out what happens to all of these cars. As Nelson Reeves comes back out on the track with damage, we will find out what happened to Zachary Fitzwater. This is the second of 2 duels here at Pensacola. So they're 4 wide behind. They're 4 wide, 4 rows deep, and they just get together in the worst possible spot. Carter goes upside down. Fitzwater with a very wild ride goes upside down as well. Nelson Reeves gets tagged. Blair escapes damage somehow. She was in the back of the pack, but escaped damage. Joshua Michaels with some damage, Halleck with damage, and Zachary Fitzwater and Kevin Carter have the worst damage of all. Their races are over on lap 19.
Yeah, they got, thankfully that the InCare Health Center is there. Definitely going to have to see how these guys fare.
So you can see Carter in the middle, right behind where this mess starts. Fitzwater gets up in the Spurleytube, who just hits Brown in the worst possible way, and then Michaels just sends Carter upside down and tumbling across the track in the worst possible way, along with Fitzwater. Nelson Reeves' hopes of making the 500 are over, and that will be a devastating blow to the Kings Motorsports team in their hopes of trying to put all 4 of their cars into the 12-man playoffs.
Yeah, definitely sad to see as we now look to our leaders here. Definitely going to be an interesting race coming through this caution. Definitely not something most of these guys wanted to see. Maybe some of them did. Definitely a lot of cars taken out of this race. Definitely a hard hit for the Kings Motorsports guys, as he said. Definitely going to be an interesting last couple laps here just to see who can even make it all the way to the end. and lock themselves into a good starting position here.
So Henry Thomas is your race leader. He was in front of the mess. Michael McCuskey, who timed his way in to the 500 on speed during pole day last week, he is running second. Miles Mashburn in third, making it a clean sweep of Chevrolets in the podium places right now. But behind him, it is just a wild mess of manufacturers and teams. Daniel Bouchard running fourth. Jason Parker is now in the top transfer spot in fifth in that underfunded BTB Motorsports entry. Could he make the 500? Just as Allison Rose is hoping to deeper in the field. But Parker's got a good chance now. He's in prime position for it, and he's got a few cars to go until he hits the next transfer car, which is Jeremiah Dwayne in 8th place.
Yeah, a whole lot of storylines still yet to be untold. Obviously, those that are taken out, their days are done, but they're still yet to be locked into this race. Those are still running, so it's definitely going to be an interesting race to see coming to the last couple of laps. We'll probably be going green fairly soon, so hopefully we can see some good aggressive racing all the way to the end.
So Jeff, behind Parker is Jeff Bolton in 6th. Justin Hutchinson luckily managed to avoid the crash. He's in 7th. He really wants to get out of this race unscathed, so he can maintain his second position to start the 500. Jeremiah Dwayne, as we mentioned, in 8th place. He's in the second transfer spot. Arthur Xavier in 9th. Duke Anzac rounds out the top 10, but behind him, there's plenty of hungry drivers who are looking to make their series debuts in the 500. We've got Allison Rose back there. We've got Cody Goforth back there, who's not looking to make his debut. He's made a few races last season, but he's never been in such a precarious position of missing the biggest race of them all, and he needs to hustle if he wants to get back up there because the laps are winding down behind the pace car.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be close here. Obviously, we are going to go green eventually, but we'll just have to see how well these guys can make it all the way up to the front and pass those guys to get into the transfer spot. Obviously, that's the most important thing for those go or go homers at this moment, so they definitely want to be very aggressive, or else they won't be able to have a shot at even trying to be in the show.
So right now, it is Jason Parker, Jeremiah Dwayne, and Allison Rose on the transfer spots. Kyle Vaughters is one spot behind Rose in 12th. He is on the outside looking in, as is Cody Goforth in the 60. So right now, it's Rose, Parker, and Dwayne in the transfer spots, and that is not a sentence I thought I'd be saying when we went into these duels, because these cars are quite underfunded compared to guys like Vaughters and Goforth. But they're proving that the draft's the big equalizer here. They're running very well, and as the lights appear to be going out on the pace car, so we will be going green next time by, and we've got plenty of racing still to come with these go-or-go homers in a very handy position.
Yeah, it'll look to be a 7-lap shootout here. Definitely going to see how this restart is going to unfold. Who's going to be aggressive early? Who's going to start making the moves? We'll have to see how the 8 of Henry Thomas does, as we saw in previous races on these super speedways. You don't want to get out to too far of a lead, but you also don't want to be stacking up the field, because then that can cause some trouble. So we'll go ahead and see how this leader does. Obviously, you want to be in the around the 2nd or 5th place cars to be in a good position here. But you're just all that you got to do for Henry Thomas in that 8 car is survive, block, do what you got to do, and try to stay up at the front here.
Keep in mind, the dominant car in this race, Blair in the 19, she is still in this race without damage in the 15th position. So she can still win this race from back there. She's going to have the hustle, though, because she's got 14 cars to pass and only about 6 laps to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Blair so far has led most of the laps today, over half of them, I believe. So she's definitely putting on a good show for her in the 19 Ford. As we're going to go ahead and go through 3 and 4 for the final time, and then hopefully get the green flag here without any commotions. So let's go ahead and see how well everybody does going through this restart.
So it's Thomas leading, McCuskey second, Mashburn, Bouchard, and Parker the top 5. Parker is in the top transfer spot. Jeff Bolton in 6th, Hutchinson 7th, Jeremiah Dwayne is in the second transfer spot in 8th, Xavier 9th, Anzac 10th, Allison Rose is in the final transfer spot just in front of Kyle Vaughters, who is desperately trying to put himself in the field and lock in all 4 of the Royal Performance Motorsports entries into the field. He is the last one to yet to lock in a spot. Sam Warning did it in the first duel, plus Michaels and Brown did it on speed. So Vaughters is looking to make it 4 for 4 as we're going back green on lap 24 of 30 here.
Great restart by everybody so far. Everybody going here in turn 1, trying to get up to speed, get into gear, get all the way to the max. As we see the 72 make a move on the 74 and try to go and look underneath the 8 here.
Miles Mashburn making a late race charge. We've seen this happen plenty of times. It's what's got him to 2 victories last season at Motegi and at Chicagoland. But right now, it's at the high banks of Pensacola where Mashburn needs to shine. And right now, Justin Hutchinson making a move on the inside of Daniel Bouchard. That's 3 wide as Jeff Bolton gets stuck on the outside. Jason Parker on the high side, he's going to lose a few spots, and that could be costly because here comes Rose, here comes Dwayne, and here comes Vaughters. Jason Parker in a very dangerous position here.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Most of the go-or-go homers trying to make their way up through the field, but some of them can't. They're just getting shuffled out to the high side, which is where you don't want to be, especially going through those corners.
And Michael McCuskey dropped from 2nd on the restart to 11th at the line that time by. We still got 6 laps to go, and anyone can still win this race, especially these go-or-go homers who are desperately trying to hang on for these final 6 laps. Allison Rose looks to be in the top transfer spot for the moment, but right now, she's facing intense pressure from Kyle Vaughters, Jeremiah Dwayne, and the rest of the field. As now Justin Hutchinson makes a move for the lead on the inside. Could we see the 500 front row starters sweep the duels? We had Christian Vargas win the first one. Can Justin Hutchinson do the same here now?
Yeah, this is nuts. This is definitely going to be interesting racing, not just at the front, but also at the back. See where the go-or-go homers are going to be placed here. As we see, race is coming down to the end as we only have 5 laps to go left in this one.
Stephen Gale on the apron. He looks like he's got a problem with his car. He better get out of the way because if he comes up at the wrong time, this could set off a melee that could impact the hopes of several drivers, but thankfully, he keeps it on the flat. He gets back up without issue, and we stay green because right now, Daniel Bouchard making a move on the inside with help from Blair in the 19. She's coming up from 15th to the top spot, pushing Daniel Bouchard to the lead in the 73 toe tip dodge. Now, Bouchard's trying to make a move on Thomas for the lead as we come to 4 laps to go in this race.
This is really good racing here as we see the 19 now make a move on the inside.
Blair this is going to be interesting for the lead, but Thomas leads that lap with help from Hutchinson, but Blair with help from McCuskey and Xavier. Now Stephen Gale's down there as well, and Allison Rose still in the top transfer spot, but they're still trying to make this race. Cody Goforth now in the transfer spot. Kyle Vaughters making a move, and that knocks Jeremiah Dwayne out of the 500 for the time being. Now Stephen Gale makes a move with Jason Parker on the inside. This is a thrilling battle just to make the big race in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, this is insane. As we see the 19.
We got a smoker, and that's Arthur Xavier with a blown engine. His hopes of winning the duel are over, and he's going to stack up the field behind him in a big way. Behind him, that's going to make this final transfer spot even more precarious for these guys as Xavier pulls off track. This is going to be a thrilling battle for the final transfer spot. Cody Goforth is in a good position now. He's all by himself in 6th place with no one behind him to threaten him as we got 5 cars under a blanket trying to take the win in this race.
This is intense. That failure by that Arthur Xavier, that was out of nowhere. Definitely stacked up the field and spread that field out. We're just going to have to see how well these guys can get up there, get back up to the front, and hopefully have a chance at this fight for the win.
We'll see if this pack, led by Stephen Gale, can catch Cody Goforth, because Jason Parker is now leading that pack. He's trying to make the 500 on speed. But right now, Jeremiah Dwayne and Allison Rose are still in contention, as is Kyle Vaughters. They're coming to 2 laps to go this time, and we've got some very interesting players in this final few laps. Goforth is losing time to this pack. They're catching him at an alarming rate. We're not focused on the battle for the lead right now. The focus is on this battle to try and make the big race.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Obviously, those guys are running up there, doing their best at the front. But we're just going to have to see who can actually make the big race. This is probably going to be the most interesting because everybody is right there, right in that blanket, trying to find their way into the big show.
5 cars racing for 3 spots. Cody Goforth, Jeremiah Dwayne, Jason Parker, Allison Rose, and Kyle Vaughters all in contention to make the race. We're coming to the white flag. Blair continues to lead with Henry Thomas and Justin Hutchinson in tow. McCuskey and Bouchard also in contention. These 5 will settle the race win between them. But the focus is on the rear of the field because that is where we're going to find who's going to make the 500 and who's going to go home empty-handed.
Great racing up front. Blair doing one hell of a job up at the front, trying to hold on to her fantastic performance here at Pensacola.
She's dominated this race, only falling out of the lead for a brief moment before returning. She's led 17 laps of this race, almost unheard of in super speedway terms. Coming up through 3 and 4 for the final time, it's Blair in the 19. She is going to easily win duel number 2 in a commanding way, ahead of her teammate Justin Hutchinson, McCuskey, Thomas, and Bouchard. Round out the top 5, but behind them, we'll see who makes the 500. Goforth is in, Dwayne is in, and by 3/100ths of a second, Allison Rose has made the Pensacola 500 by 3/100ths, and that will leave Jason Parker heartbroken as he will go home empty-handed, as will Kyle Vaughters in the 62. Their hopes have gone up in smoke, but Allison Rose, by the slimmest of margins, will race in the Pensacola 500. The underfunded Capital Racing team has done it. They will be in the big show.
What an amazing story. Obviously, one great race by everybody in this field. Glad to be up here in the booth. Thank you for having me, as this was a very interesting race to see. And we'll go ahead and see how well these guys can make it, especially in the big show now, everybody being locked in. Sad to see those who aren't able to go to the big show. But thank you for everybody for putting on a good one. Thank you, everybody, for putting on one great race here today.
So we've had 2 incredible Pensacola duels in the books, and the final 6 drivers have locked themselves into the 500. The final 3 of those being Cody Goforth, Jeremiah Dwayne, and Allison Rose. By the slimmest of margins, she will race in the 500. Blair will start 3rd. Hutchinson will keep his starting spot as 2nd, bringing it home in one piece. And we've got a thrilling Pensacola 500 field. 8 cars go home. 42 are still in contention for the biggest prize of all here in 2021 to get this 1UP Superstar Series season underway. So from Ben McDonald and from myself as well, we say goodbye for now from Pensacola. We'll be back for the Nitro National Series race coming up soon. And after that, the big daddy of them all, the Pensacola 500, coming up soon. You won't want to miss that. So thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll see you then for the big race, the Pensacola 500.